Welcome to Algebra Prep Academy. Today we will be learning absolute value equations.
Start off with a note. What's important is always isolate the absolute value. From there, you can split it into two equations, one with a positive solution and one with a negative. We do this because absolute values will always be positive.
For our first example, we have the absolute value of x plus 9 plus 4 equals 12. Subtract 4 to both sides, and you end up with absolute value of x plus 9 equals 8. Now you split the problem into two parts, x plus 9 plus equals 8, and x plus 9 equals negative 8. Subtract 9 to both sides, and you end up with negative 1. Do the same to the other side, and you should end up with negative 17. Now that we have our solutions, we will plug the solutions back into the problem. This will be our check step. The first thing to do is plug negative 1 into the equation. The absolute value of negative 1 plus 9 plus 4 equals 12. And you should get the absolute value of 8 plus 4 equals 12. You end up with 12 equals 12. And now we are going to plug it in our second solution, and we get the absolute value of negative 17 plus 9 plus 4 equals 12. And you end up with the absolute value of negative 8 plus 4 equals 12. Once you use PEMDAS, you should end up with 12 equals 12.
For our next example, we have 7 absolute value 2 plus x is equal to 14. Since we have 7 on the outside of the left-hand side, we have to divide it to both sides to isolate the absolute value. This gives us absolute value 2 plus x equals 2. Now, we split the equation. This gives us 2 plus x equals 2 and 2 plus x equals negative 2. For both sides, we have to isolate the variable by subtracting the 2. That gives us x equals 0 and x equals negative 4. Now for the check step. Using the two solutions we got, we will plug it into our original problem. First, plug in our first number, 0. Now our problem is 7, absolute value 2 plus 0 equals 14. Now we multiply 7 to 2, and we get 14. 14 equals 14, and so our first solution is correct. Now we plug the other solution in. Our equation is 7, absolute value 2 minus 4 is equal to 14. 2 plus negative 4 is negative 2, and since it's an absolute value, it becomes positive 2. 7 times positive 2 is equal to 14, and so x equals negative 4 is correct. Now for the last example, we have the problem 3 absolute value 4x plus 2 minus 7 is equal to 11. The first step is to get rid of negative 7, and in order to do so, we add 7 to both sides of the equation, thus making the problem 3 absolute value 4x plus 2 is equal to 18. Now we're going to divide 3 to make the absolute value alone on one side of the equation, which makes the problem absolute value 4x plus 2 is equal to 6. Now that we have simplified our equation, we can solve for x. Remember that we will have two different equations for x, one with negative 6 and the other with 6. Now we just solve, resulting in x equals 1 and x equals negative 2. Now for the check step. Just plug in either x or both and solve using PEMDAS. As we can see, both 1 and negative 2 are both correct solutions.